Julie Blank, and as Matt said, I'm a graduate of the program. And I work at Stroud Networks in research and consumer insights. Kind of get on the soapbox sometimes that those are two different things, and I heard a great consumer insights question earlier, so I'm expecting another one.
And I'm Greg Stroud. I get the Bob Barker mic. I was at Scripps with Julie for 10 years, and I worked as a creative director and in marketing, and I'm also a graduate of the program, and I have my pen on. Okay.
So you're joining us at Scripps Networks, and that's the parent company of HGTV, Food Network, Travel Channel, DIY, Do-It-Yourself Network, Cooking Channel, and Great American Country. So we're actually going to talk about a couple of those networks, but we're also going to talk about one of our favorite brands, which is Fine Living Network, and it's no longer a network here domestically, but it's one of our most successful international networks. So, as you know, as a television company, you could say we're in the business of watching.
Yeah, today we're going to look at 3 different ways that we watch in marketing at Scripps that might surprise you. Maybe 3 ways you never expected.
So first we're going to talk about watching time-starved Sarah. She is a target of Fine Living Network. Then we're going to talk about watching trends. As you heard the guys from McDonald's say, watching trends is important to them. And then we're going to talk about watching commercials.
So first, if you don't mind, let's watch a video and let's watch some llamas.
My husband and I came out of the Back to the Land movement of the 60s. We had raised every kind of farm animal that you could possibly raise. When we got llamas, we had 4 young children. Llamas actually move out of your way instead of moving towards you, so that was one of the things that attracted us with young children. Our herd is really with an eye towards fiber production. If you would want a llama for a pleasure animal, you would want 2 llamas because llamas don't do well by themselves. A pleasure animal would be an animal that is used for backpacking, trying to pull a cart. It's more of an animal, it just really is a family pet. It's an honor to be able to make a world that 60 animals can live very comfortably and gently without a lot of strife.
All right, Fine Living Network, very interesting name for a network. Based on the video we just watched, what would you say Fine Living Network was about? Llamas? Lifestyles? What type of program, what type of audience do you think they were going after? Any guesses? Crunchy? Yeah. High-end? Somebody say high-end? No. Retirees. What? Okay. Well, Fine Living is a perfect example of having a product, but not doing the appropriate target audience research to get that product to work. And so that's what we're going to talk about right now. It was launched as a very upscale network, but we found out a lot of things. Non-millionaires found our programming so far out of reach it wasn't even aspirational. And then we also found out an interesting thing about very rich millionaires, about television, their television habits. Can you guess about how they watch television?
They don't.
Exactly. They do not watch television because they're on a yacht.
With a llama.
With a llama.
So, if you hear us talk about llamas again, yell out llama real quick, because at the end you can come up and grab a little prize out of my bag. I only have 4, so 4 llama sightings, you let us know.
So playing behind me is just an example of what would play on Fine Living, super duper high-end housing. And most importantly, high-end upscale advertisers, guess how much television they buy? Almost none. Cartier might be in Vogue magazine, maybe, but they're never going to be on a cable network.
So this is a pretty interesting marketing predicament. We needed to rebrand this network. We needed to find a new audience because it wasn't working out. So we're going to get to talking about watching Time-Starved Sarah. Time-Starved Sarah was kind of our internal way of talking about this consumer. The GM of the network at the time said, you know, I've got this picture in my head, but it's not clear to me, so what can we do? So, of course, the first thing we need to do is know our customer, but we never say customer of Scripps. It's just not in the words there. It's, we talk about viewers. So, you know, substitute those words in and out as I'm talking, because a lot of times here in the IMC program, we're talking about our consumers or our customers. So much like this cover in Adweek that talks about having the right product and the wrong consumer, that was kind of our situation, except maybe we had the products and an audience that weren't really lining up. So we ended up with a lot of people in my office going, what are we going to do? How are we going to figure out who our target is? You know, we have this parent company of Scripps, and we know we want to be appealing to affluent customer cable viewers, but who are we going to, who is she? How do we get to know her? So it led to a lot of questions. And it led the marketers to be asking, well, what kind of music does she listen to? What kind of, where is she shopping for her kids? Does she have kids? What kind of education does she have? Does she have career aspirations? So tons and tons of questions coming my way. And it was evident to me that the creative team that Greg was on was, they were ready to really immerse themselves and understand this consumer. And I knew I had a good group of people that we could disguise as researchers and send them into the field and get them to kind of learn in the moment. So we designed a research project that really capitalized on, you know, these really eager creatives who were willing to toss their Converse sneakers and their black t-shirts for, you know, acting like a researcher in the moment. So we designed a project where we got to do some ethnographies. We could take the audience insight course. That's one of the projects that you'll be working on, was an ethnography. So before we get to the findings of that search for Sarah, as we called it, you kind of have to know who your audience is internally when you're working on a project. So this is kind of my pitch for when you're designing research for a company. These are kind of the things you need to ask yourself. So know your client's style. Can you take your client on the road with you? How can you engage them? And what are they going to get excited about, and what are they going to remember? Give your client a reason to participate. And when you participate in something, you remember it, and you're able to, you know, really immerse yourself in it. And you know, that self-discovery is a really important part of, you know, going back to your research and really learning from it. And lastly, even before you get out of the field of the research, you really need to understand how you're going to share your story back. If I had taken a pile of charts and graphs back to Greg's team, they would have said, yeah, I'm out of here. They would not have stood and listened. So we developed some materials that really spoke to them, that helped them learn in the way that they were used to learning, and gave them a framework for discussions. A lot of good research brings up more questions, and so that's what we're going to share now. So the central question for this research was really about time-starved Sarah. That was something that we came up with internally. And we said, how does she live her life? If her daily choices boil down to time and money, does time equal money? Is time greater than money, or is money greater than time? So that was how we approached this research. So the objectives really were to learn who Sarah really is, more than just her demographic profile. We really wanted to put her down on paper and everybody to be operating off the same kind of understanding.
In 610 speech, that was our persona, basically, right? That we had defined that we were going after.
Yep. And we wanted to discover if her programming was really appealing to her, and if not, what was she looking for? You know, it was not. So we needed to understand what she was looking for. So Greg and the rest of their creative team dressed up as researchers, and we did ethnographies in 3 cities, strategically chosen markets where we knew that we had good carriage for the network. So we went there. So we have her demographic profile, but we really needed to understand her psychographic profile. So here is a little bit of our video output from that project, and just, it is research quality video, meaning it is a camcorder in the field, so it does not look as slick as some other things that you'll see.
to our look into the essence of her viewer, Sarah. When we met her, we knew some things about her. She's affluent, busy, and an active internet user. We found a lot of that, but we also found some more complicated nuances. That's where our story gets pretty interesting. Let's get started in Sarah's home. Note the clean lines in her home decor. Now look closely and listen to what Sarah told us. Sarah is responsible.
You know, I think I've become less of a risk taker as I've gotten older, and it's, you know, like it's important for me to know, that I've got job security, that there's a steady paycheck coming in, and that, it's going to move over my head and I'm not going to be homeless.
Sarah is spontaneous.
You do something, off the cuff, go to Chicago for the weekend, or just, kind of be spontaneous.
Sarah has some guilty pleasures too.
Look at the super picture. Very trashy.
But most of all, Sarah loves being an active participant.
Life happens. I just feel like maybe just life happens. And I guess what I mean by that is, if you don't take an active role, things are just going to happen, and things are going to happen anyway. You're just going to be on the side, watching it, or
So hours and hours of this video came back, and from this we really had a lot of rich insights into these Sarahs, as we call them internally. And we talked to their husbands and their families as well. And this method really gave us, and gave those of us, there were folks sitting on the couch there from the Fine Living creative team talking to these women. So they really learned in the moment. And we learned not just about, what she's doing in her, in front of the TV, but we learned, what life is like for her. And through that immersion, we really gained, the language and the style that we needed to appeal to her with. So from this, there needed to be some way to, we had the video as a deliverable from the Consumer Insights team, but we also, of course, had to put something down on paper so that there was, something to refer to. So we came up with a way in only about a dozen slides to really capture, 3 cities, probably 16 Sarahs, and we found a way to capture that. So on our search for Sarah, here's her passport, and so the materials really reflected that. Here are all the stamps we collected along the way: her family, her money, her work and her career aspirations, her social life, and lots more of those facets. And we found some common themes in those that boiled down. Authenticity was really big for her, and this was before we were really talking about authenticity in millennials. She didn't spend her time, sorting through a lot of stuff. She wanted to elevate her decision making, whether it be what soap she was going to buy or what car seat she was going to buy for her child. She was content with where she was in life, and she has this can-do attitude to where she is going to find a solution for whatever problem comes her way. So Fine Living was an entertainment brand, and we developed these principles to delight Sarah, because we really needed to be able to speak to her, in the right way, so that we were communicating with her rather than feeling like, another big brand coming her way. So we went to very clean design, because that was a welcome contrast to all of the chaos in her life. So we summed up Sarah for the creative team, I know it's a slide behind, and we just didn't recount the findings. We really established these guidelines for talking to Sarah as a one-on-one marketing strategy. So that name that we gave her, Times Drive Sarah, that was actually an insult to her. We never, ever, ever said that outside of our building. Calling her Time Star implied that she couldn't manage her time well. So we made sure that speak never left our walls at Scripps. And if you think about what Greg was saying about the upscale nature of Fine Living, there's millionaires out on yachts. She appreciates the quality, but she didn't want to ever appear pretentious or showy. So she's not the type to carry around a giant logo on her purse or something like that. It was a more subtle effect for her. So the last thing that we we left the creative group was this one sheet of Sarah, and you know, this was a few years ago. There's a nice little flippy phone thing. She would definitely have the smartphone now. These Sarahs. So we left them with this card, and frankly, I got sick of seeing this woman all over our building. But it really left the creative group with her personality traits, her favorite brands, what she was watching, and what she was doing online. And it really gave them one specific target to keep in mind as this rebrand was taking place. So this sat on their desk, and it really served as the inspiration for a revised customer promise.
Yeah, so let me tell you how we took all of that information, and a couple of quick notes. She calls us the creative team, and when you get into companies, sometimes the marketing department is not called the marketing department. We were creative, but we were the marketing team, and we had marketing partners. And the other thing I do want to reiterate, if you get into the business world and your client is internal, I was her client. You have to do what Julie did, and you have to present like you're presenting to somebody externally, and you have to make it interesting, or they'll never buy into your marketing ideas. They'll just be bored to death. So
The last thing I want to do is work the state.
yeah, so
They're the cool people.
when we know research is coming in the room, we just want to have a drink because we're thinking it's going to be a deck this big and it's going to be a lot of numbers. So when they walked in with literal passports to hand out to us. And it just made everybody go, this is going to be kind of fun. So remember that as you go forward. So we called it a customer promise. If I went back in time after taking this program, I'd call it the ICSS. And what we developed out of that to guide all of our, not just marketing, but programming, everything we did at the network was this. We promise our viewers that if they watch Fine Living before they spend their time or money on anything, they'll have a better experience. Which that gets translated then into many different creative briefs. Here's just one that's very tiny, but this was built. This was for all the programming interstitials that we run on air. We called it netting, ran around our programs. It was intended to keep delivering the promise around programs. I highlighted some words that I hope you can see tie back to what Julie did. Make sure before you spend, when you watch Fine Living, make sure it means fun and entertaining, but practical advice. Not pretentious. Enrich their lives. When you do content, make sure problems are solved. But entertain when you do that. At the bottom on the creative, it said, once again, we kept saying, don't be pretentious. Make sure it's fun. She kept talking about having fun. Positive message. You know, don't bring her down about not having enough time. Use clean and simple design. So that led to our tagline and our look on this next slide, which was, do more with your time and money. So we went all the way from that upscale network down to this. We still wanted to be upscale, but reachable. And we were going to show you, when you watched our network, how you get more out of your time and money if you watch our shows. And this was the basic look. It was a flat, I call it a flat print look, and a nice cursive handwriting. We felt the handwriting brought the scale down a little bit. So, not just marketing, but programming. Before the research for Time Star Sarah, and let me back up. In addition to research, we did everything else. SWOT analysis, benchmarking, everything everybody does in all of the programs. But really, this target audience was what drove everything. So before, these were the kind of shows we had on Radical Sabbatical. People taking 2 years off to go live in Hawaii and do something like we all get to do. Napa style, you know, what's it like to live in Napa, like we all get to do. Pairings with Andre Emmer, a sommelier in 20 different countries who says sommelier over and over, and collector car auction, not a car under $125,000. That was that audience. At the Time Star Sarah, we moved to this kind of program. The shopping detective. The shopping bags, that's what they are. They call themselves the shopping bags. But they would go shop for upscale materials, but show you how to get it at a discount. Or show you how to get an expensive jacket, but layer it with a Target shirt and save money. Time Makeover was all about reorganizing your life to make effective use of your time. Mission organization, organizing your house. So that's where we ended up. And I'll show you a quick, this was a 30-second spot that ran on our air that was built to bring Time Star Sarah in, and I hope it reflects back on all of the research.
stuff? Before you shop, watch Fine Living. Our Smart Shopping Weekends is an entire morning of shows filled with inside tips and expert advice. It's what you need to know before buying the stuff you need. Smart Shopping Weekends, every morning, every weekend on Fine Living. Do more with your time and money.
All right, I hope that fit. Now, the study of Fine Living, Aunt Sarah is a great example of building a consumer brand that actually has a viable target audience. But marketing doesn't just stop with one target. In Scripps' case, it would seem probably to you that we are 100% consumer focused, getting people to watch programming. But that's the next part of our presentation. We actually do a lot more than that. And this next slide will show what it is. This is where we make our money. So guess who our biggest target is? Advertisers, that's right. And sometimes it takes a while when somebody comes in that's new, that's a creative, they come in thinking, we're all about making programming. We're really all about making programming that makes ad sales revenues. So for instance, this is from our 10K. As we all look at 10Ks or write all our papers, this is what we say at Scripps. S&I build incredibly strong brands to stand the test of time and stand firm amid an ever-changing media environment. These brands attract extremely loyal, engaged, and upscale consumers that advertisers want to reach. These are llamas with the
Oh no! Entirely too successful. I'm gonna go over here in the green shirt. I think I heard saw and heard.
All right, it doesn't really say llama, but you were paying attention, which is great. All right, these are consumers with the high disposable income to spend on our advertisers' products and services. Our brands drive consumer purchasing decisions. You see any word in there about creating a great television show? Now, they mention it in the 10K, I'm not kidding, but this is the focus. Isn't that good? So to say it another way, our primary objective is creating great programming that builds the right kind of audience to attract national advertisers, ad agencies, and media buyers. So Julie is going to explain how we do some B2B marketing and how we actually get advertisers to our network.
Yeah, so earlier in McDonald's presentation, I heard you ask a great question about consumer insights. How do you grab those things from the field and bring them back to the company? So who knows what these things are? Yeah, not llama houses, right?
Llama.
Right there in the
Okay.
all right.
Okay.
I'm not used to saying llama llama. Somebody said llama llama.
Right here.
Oh, all right. You. All right.
Okay, good. That's been very successful. I'm glad. Okay, so there's a lot of ways that we market ourselves in a B2B fashion. And those are the upfronts that happen, early spring, like March, April, where all of the networks, all the cable networks, broadcast networks show off their upcoming programming, and they razzle-dazzle the ad buyers who are going to then buy advertising for the next television season. The advertising trades, of course, and there's PR, but those are the tactics you're familiar with. So one of the that you might not be as familiar with is, this consumer insights side. So we do a lot of trend watching, and we do it from a wide angle, and then we bring it down, and we are able to, tell our advertisers how our viewers are, watching this trend as well, and what their opinions are on it, and how they're responding to it. Like, are they buying stuff that is in response to this trend? So it's one of those things where we can do a little bit of small dollar research that turns around into a big sell for our advertisers. And it's really our version of content marketing. And it gives us that content to then show to our advertisers and position ourselves as the leader in these lifestyle kind of insights. So here's kind of the anatomy of a trend. Years ago, before there were tiny homes, we started hearing about homes getting smaller, not to the point of tiny or micro. There's even things called micro homes, which are crazy. It's not even big enough to get a TV camera in to actually make a show on it. But Americans were really pushing for this efficient use of space in their homes, and builders were getting pressure to think about how people operate and use their four walls and a roof a little bit differently. At the same time, millennials were kind of teaching all of us about redefining success. my version of success is not the same as my parents' version. So these were kind of, you know, different things that really weren't connected at the time, but we saw them kind of start to converge. We started hearing about this idea of the unhouse. Who wants all these extra rooms, like a dining room? I'm just gonna use that once at Thanksgiving. I would rather have that square footage be a flex space for my life to really happen. So it might be a yoga room for one person, or that square footage might be a craft room, or an exercise room, or a media room for another. So people were kind of unhousing. They were making rooms do different things. And we also hear a lot about collecting experiences, not stuff. So, we all get burdened by the stuff these days. And I don't want all this because I don't know what to do with it all. I have to store it. I have to, keep all the memories. Well, we started investing in experiences. You saw actually even wedding registries moved from, China and silver and all of this to help me pay for an awesome honeymoon because I want that experience and I don't want to, have this set of china because I still have my grandmother's set of china, other things. So this is really about a trend converging. And then Tiny House premiered in December of 2014, Tiny House Hunters. And there were some other networks that did this too, but we were out there before them. So we saw these things kind of coming together, what was happening as the millennials were becoming, starting to get to that homeowning age. So these things started to converge. And you'll see that in the spot I'm going to show, you can really hear these trends almost literally come out in the spot. So listen closely to this one.
Monday nights on HGTV just got a tiny bit better.
That's what sets us apart from everybody else.
Tiny houses are the big new craze.
We would rather spend our money on experiences and going places than putting all our money into a house.
This tiny house is really going to allow us the lifestyle we want. We can work less and live more.
We're redefining what successful is.
Check out an all-new tiny house good living next Monday at 9, only on HGTV.
That's B2C, obviously for the consumer, but that same message goes out to B2B. That's a great thing to look at.
Yeah. So one of the great things about working for a company like Scripps is that they have invested in a consumer panel or a consumer community where we have folks at our disposal to go out and ask these questions to. So there's a lot of panels out there. You might be on a panel for a retailer if you shop the same store all the time, and especially if you have their credit card, they're asking you to come take surveys and come participate in discussion boards or forums about their brand. So we have this tool at Scripps, and it's something that we use to turn around to our advertisers. So this is where we get all this content to share back with them about tiny homes. So our panel is called Under One Roof. And we have it stacked full of food, home, and travel enthusiasts. And we go out there and put out, fun, engaging surveys for them to give us their opinions about what we're doing.
Quick question.
Sure.
Your backslide, was that meant to resemble a llama?
Is it a hidden llama?
Oh,
wow. No, but
Who asked
she
that
is
question?
afterwards. Hidden llamas,
That's
just like a
good.
hidden Mickey.
We cannot get away from llamas. That llama spot was mocked on Saturday Night Live, but I can't find any record of it. It's not a llama.
Yeah, it's not the llama, and we didn't even know. We're brainwashed by llamas now. So one of the things we do, I went to our panel and I said, hey, what about these tiny homes? We saw the ratings skyrocket for tiny homes. And we said, well, why? Do you really live in a tiny home? No, there's not a lot of people that live in these things. Yes, that number's increasing. But nobody in our panel was living in a tiny home at the point. But we said, why are you so fascinated with this? And it turned out that there were some really great ideals that emerge. So, this is our version of content marketing. So this went back in front of some of our advertisers, and we found out that tiny, that trend, reflects emerging values. So it isn't material goods, but it's living debt-free and traveling. And then we asked how they first heard about it, and of course they heard about it from us, so we took a little credit for that. But then what we did is we said, what are you going to do? Now that you've seen this programming on tiny homes, what can you take from it? And so we have said, are you going to do anything you saw? Are you going to try? Are you going to buy anything you saw? And yeah, half the folks said, I'm going to do something, or I'm going to buy something. So that was really attractive to go back to our advertisers and say, hey, this is a little quirky. This isn't, a lifestyle that everybody wants to live, but it's fascinating to watch. And there actually is takeaway, because that is one of the promises of HGTV, is that you're going to take away something from it. It might not be something that you use tomorrow, but at least you're going to be inspired by it, or stick it in your back pocket and come access it when you need it, when you're ready for it in life. So the last thing that I have to do with this is really inspire, oh no, that went behind there. I really have to inspire our account executives. And I have to say, tiny house is going to be hard to explain to our advertisers. And so think unconventionally about how we can get some different kinds of advertisers in here. So think about financial, living debt-free is a big motivator here, and people are interested in that. How can I reduce my house debt and use that money for something else? A life simplification, just releasing a lot of that clutter that we deal with that bogs us down.
Can I say something about simplification? As an example, with simplification, we called our account executive that handles Sherwin-Williams and paints and said, look, if they've got a paint that's a primer and paint in one, that's a simplification, and people that watch tiny homes are really into simplification. And that's how we explain the story to advertisers.
Yeah. And it's also about adventure. Doing something you've never done. Maybe you're going to live in a tiny home for a portion of your time, or maybe you're going to move from a suburban to urban situation. It's about adventure, about trying something new. And it's also about the environment, being more conscious of your eco habits. So these are the kinds of stories that we worked to make them fit. They became a natural fit as we explored this topic with our panelists from the Under One Roof panel. And we then got to talk to advertisers like this one that Greg has worked with.
Yes, so let me give you a big success from this advertising, from this content marketing campaign. And success at Scripps on the ad sales side, one big thing for success for us is new. New client, new money is big for us. And part of that is sales always want something new, but it's bigger than that. New money typically means higher CPMs for us. New money means we're beating our sales goals from the last year. New money means we're growing as a company, and we're a publicly held company, and growth is very important. So new money is very important to our network. So right behind us was a new company that came to our network specifically because of tiny homes programming. Can anybody tell what it is? Yeah, very good. Man, what a powerful brand. Doesn't even say their name up there. It's only 1/10 of that, 1/30th of that screen. So Nest, what's interesting about them, we got to see their brand guide and we got to talk to them. And in their brand guide, they say, we are creating not just a product, not just a company, but an idea. In fact, when we talked to them on the phone, they would never even say the word thermostat. We're creating a lifestyle. So we sold them on the idea that tiny homes itself is not just a show, but an idea. So it would fit perfectly for you guys, and it's a trend. And it fits perfectly with their messaging. This is their voice document. Julie put the red lines on there. But you can see simple and simple and simplification. Does that not tie back to everything we were saying about tiny homes and delightful? Julie, how did that tie in? Is that basically?
Yeah, it absolutely tied in. It was one of those things like, I'm never going to do this, but I can enjoy somebody else doing this. Still living vicariously through people with tiny homes with baby llamas.
Llama.
All right, so that's how we do a little bit of B2B. Now we want to talk about something else we have to watch all the time, and what we watch is our own basic product, which is the 30-second commercial. We keep an eye on it because, this is no surprise to anybody in the audience, we've known for years that the 30-second spot is dying. It's not enough for advertisers anymore, so we keep a big eye on it. So what we do now is a lot of what's called integration, not the way we use it in this program. So it was very confusing for me to work on the brand integration team at Scripps and be taking an integration master's program, but anyway. So this is an example of integration. Behind me is a shot from a show with David Bromstad. Anybody know David? Okay. And you can see in the shot, we have HGTV Home by Sherwin-Williams. This is a double integration because we actually have a brand line, a sub-brand of HGTV Home product. But in the show, here's this spot, and that's how we would do integration and get around the 30-second spot. The way to explain how well integration can work for people, I'll just let one of our talent, Genevieve Gorder, explain it. This is a B2B piece we put together to sell the idea of integration.
I'm actually not shooting my show today. We're shooting a commercial for SC Johnson.
And action Genevieve.
We're showcasing what their products can do and how I can incorporate some of my design tips. HGTV is part of making these interviews happen. These are all things that we do naturally on design shows. You don't always see them. You have to clean it. It has to be beautiful. It has to be perfection before the pretty thing on top of it. I feel like our viewers are looking for guidance. Design is something that may come naturally to them, but they need that extra support, the confidence. I think our job is to take away that fear and to be more empowered to make buying decisions. I do naturally use a lot of these products. I do use Index. Yes, I have used Pledge many times. Beyond having HG filter through things they think would work with my brand, I also have to ask myself, does this work for me? Is this genuine? Because I think that is part of my brand. It's very genuine. It doesn't feel like a big leap. I'm selling things that I actually use.
We want to feel like we can live in our living rooms, but how do you keep your living room livable?
Step 1. Revitalize the entire room with Pledge. Don't worry about delicate surfaces. It adds shine to almost everything, not just wood. Step 2. Think of your bookcase like a giant sculpture. Stack books with spines facing inward for an unexpected look.
Shiny, noticeably clean. This is a living room you can really live in.
Get more tips at hgtv.com/helparoundthehome.
So just to summarize that, the Pledge SCJ products, it wasn't just Pledge, were in her show, and she used them in endemic settings. Short form was created, 30 seconds long, that ran in commercial breaks that Pledge bought. And then there were online pieces that ran for a full year. And then we were on her packet, on SCJ packaging. So that's what we call integration, when we integrated your product into our storyline. And if it's done correctly, we go backwards and integrate it into their storyline too.
Yeah, so Greg's team, the integration team, came to Consumer Insights and Research Group, and they said, where's the lines? Where is this shameless product placement, and where is this an integration that is valuable for the consumer? So what we understood from them is they really needed, there wasn't one right way to do this. There was a spectrum. So they really needed some guardrails to kind of bump around in between to figure out exactly when integrations are most effective. So again, to go back to the little research methodology, I thought about who I was working with, and I knew I needed a blended deliverable for this, meaning I really need this grounded in data, and I did show them a bunch of data, but I also needed a metaphor or a story for this to be easily talkable in their meetings.
Because we're slow.
No, they're very bright, so I took them bowling. Actually, we didn't go bowling, but we used this bowling alley as an analogy for the framework for how to create these stories. So we watched, a bunch of our viewers watch commercials, and we asked them for their feedback on it. And what we learned was, we had a range. So we had the whole lane to work in, but there were definite gutterball moments. So we wanted to say, you know what, you can bowl a strike in more than one way, but you just can't ever hit that gutter, because then it's hard to gain back the trust there. So this is an example of one of the pieces that we delivered to them. So we came up with a lot of different scenarios and these integrations, and we said, you know, here's this show versus this and this advertiser, and that show and this advertiser. We had all these different pairings that were really strategically chosen. And what we learned is that there's this creative authenticity zone where we've got permission from viewers to stay anywhere in this lane, and they're gonna be okay with it. But if we hit that inauthentic zone, then that's a gutter ball. So, you know, too seamless and the integration goes unnoticed, but too forced and it gets called out. A lower brand fit can actually result in higher brand recall, but you know, then your authenticity is at risk. So the creative treatment and good storytelling and the right client were really the right combination.
So, I keep picking up the wrong mic. There's a lot of you, sorry. So would it surprise you if I said that part of our B2B marketing is getting the right client on our air? And no? So what do you think I mean by the right client to advertise? Anybody want to guess?
Client that best fits the brand of the network.
Very good answer. Exactly. You know, we have our own consumer marketing goals. And right now, just like everybody else, we want to lower the age of people watching the network. We want to be more interesting on air. So what do you think it feels like on our air if in a commercial break comes up and it's help, I've fallen and I can't get up ad? We want their money, but we want different advertising. And there's so much, you probably know, so much of our on-air time is commercial now. It's just as much part of our brand as the program. So it's important for us to get the right client, especially when integrating. A commercial break is, we keep an eye on that too, but you definitely don't want to be in a show with the wrong product, because then the show gets killed and we bowl a gutter ball basically. So behind us is one of our big integration wins, and it was very exciting to get them on the air. This of course is Fiat. Fiat, if you've seen their advertising and their sales so far, they skew very young. They're a very interesting brand, they were fun to work with, and we were excited to put them in a show. I also have a clip from their brand, this came from their RFP, it's their creative positioning, and it's kind of hard to read it, but what's great is we met their brand goals and they met our brand goals, and they were integrated into a show called High Low with Sabrina Soto. But they want active households, that's all we talk to is active households. They want people who are stylish and fun and curious. That's exactly what HGTV is about. They talk about custom design in their vehicles. Design, HGTV. So when they went on our air, it wasn't just getting more money. It was putting a brand on our air that helped us meet our goals. And that's the perfect integration. So to finish, I want to show you one of the 30-second spots that ran. So once again, we call it a 360 integration. They're in a show. Sabrina Soto would drive the car at the beginning of the show. She would go put stuff in the vehicle. They had on-air presence with a lot of short form with Sabrina Soto giving design tips, and she would touch maybe sometimes on Italian design. I'm not sure we did any print with this, probably not. And then all over our air run a schedule, this spot ran.
And now the reveal.
Oh, Heather, that's exciting.
It would be like sitting in a cloud.
Yeah, and I love your use of space.
I could get the band back together.
Is that Spanish design?
This is unbelievable.
No way. Only Italians could put that kind of style into a car.
Car?
Yeah.
For style, you can't live without the high-low project on HGTV and the all-new four-door Fiat 500L. More Fiat, more possibilities.
So I hope that showed how we got both brands in there, and that is our ultimate goal. We call it co-branding. And we did it in a fun way, and it ran on air, and we felt like that represented our brand okay. And they felt like it represented their brand okay. And anybody from Fiat here? They were lovely to work with because their brand managers believe in a strong brand, and many other companies will insist on putting product attributes into a spot like this. Things like engine size or how many doors. All that brand manager for Fiat said was, make it fun, and you try to say something about Italian design. And I think it all worked. So that's about it, right? So our final thing to, I will give you our final words of wisdom.
Yeah, so watch your consumer. Are they the right target? Does your product match the target?
Watch for trends. Don't get behind the trends. What's happening that can help you? What's happening that can help your consumer? What's happening in trends that can help your B2B client?
And then watch your product. What worked 2 years ago, or even last week, may not work now. Your customers will always need something new. I think we heard that here, and we heard it before in the drama press.
Yeah, constantly evolve out of that 30-second commercial. And finally, watch for llamas. Oh.